Greetings. This is Jackson Snyder. So glad you're here listening. This is a discussion between Bishop Regash, Elder Staten, and myself in regards to the one-man system. That is the polity of so many assemblies or government. That government consisting of one powerful, charismatic leader who makes all the decisions for the group or church. And perhaps you're in a system like that now. And if you are, you'll find that this forum has got a lot to offer you as to how to survive and thrive within the one-man system. And the one-man system is contrasted with the apostolic system, which consists of a group or Yahad of leaders who rely on Yeshua to be their head and the Holy Spirit to bring forth the various injunctions and commandments for the assembly to accomplish. All three of us represent the Vero Essene Yahad, Hebrew roots the Essene way, at veroyahad.org. Or you can contact me, Jackson Snyder, at veroyahad@gmail.com. That's VEROYAHAD at Gmail. Again, I thank you for listening.
That's what they really do. They really are. And in the process of kingdom building. I mean, and I'll just say what I said earlier. You think about this. The one-man system, the one God system, the one Lord system is I believe to be an ungodly system, a system that is of anti-Messiah. And the reason being is this. When you come in and you have a problem with that leader, the way that system is set up, it's set up that you have to either bow to the leader or you have to leave. It's not set up to resolve issues. It's not set up to deal with conflicts with leadership. Most of the leaders that I know and that I've gotten a chance to serve under, they are all that way. Every last one of them, they can almost be said to have been cut from the same cloth. And so what they do is, if there is a problem, they don't deal with the problem. And when they do deal with the problem, it's in a very violent way. So that one-man dictatorial system, it breeds a spirit of violence, Hamas. And so this is what a lot of people get when they come to this type of system. Now, why do they go to this type of system? I believe that they go to this type of system because they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. They don't want to take ownership for their past decisions. And so they look for a person to lay all of their issues on. And so those leaders, who I believe are kings, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, they look to these kings to take that responsibility on, and they gladly do it. And I believe that the general body is under judgment. I mean, let's look at what he says in his word. When they said to Samuel, give us a king like all of the other nations. Give us a king that can rule over us. And Samuel told them exactly what was going to happen to them. He also consulted with Yahweh, who was the head of the Kehillah. And Yahweh told them they rejected me. And so they ended up at the end of everything, both houses of Israel being dragged off the 10 tribes, dragged off via the Assyrian Empire, and Judah being dragged off by a combination of people, starting with Babylon, Greece, Rome, at the end of everything. And so they all ended up dispersed. Now, contrast that with the true biblical plural model. Let's look at it, go back to the word. First of all, let's take Yahweh. Yahweh does everything in councils, right? So if Yahweh does everything in councils, his word says what? He consults with the host of the heavens. And he backs it up because you see in his word, I think it's in 2 Kings, where they were talking about getting rid of Jezebel's husband, Ahab. Yeah. And the word, it says, he saw a vision, the prophet saw a vision of a session, a council session. And these people who Yahweh was counseling with, and also keep this in mind, not everybody on that council is good. There's righteous and unrighteous there. And so he's counseling with these people, and Yahweh says, who shall I send to cause Ahab to fall today? And one spirit came forth and said, I will go. I will put a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets, and they will cause that word will cause him to go forth into battle where he will be killed. Yahweh says at the end of that, go forth and prevail. Okay? So you see that account. Now slide forward. Yahweh, Yeshua gives us a model. The model with him as the head of the Kehillah. That's the top of the pyramid. The 12 under that. Okay? And then everybody else, all of the leadership and stuff under that, along with the general body. So what we have is a pyramid set up, and where the one-man system is getting it wrong is the one-man system sets the man who you can see at the top of the pyramid. So if that leader decides to get abusive and strike out at you, your wife, or even your child, where do you go to get redress? You don't go anywhere.
True.
You don't go anywhere. Why? Because the system is not set up for redress, as I said earlier. But under the plurality model, there is redress, because in the 12, all of can we agree that all of the apostles were equal?
Definitely.
Yeah. So if all of the apostles were equal, what does that give you? As somebody in the general body, you can go to somebody and get redress. If I have a problem with James, I go to John, and John and me will bring it to James. You see what I'm saying?
Well, there is something that you didn't mention. The fact is, the one-man system dies.
Yes.
Literally. So when
talk about that.
It's very simple. When the one man dies, it's dead. That's the end of it. It's the comparison between communism and Nazism. You know, the Nazi system was set up not for another person to take over. It was Hitler and him only.
And when he died,
the movement died. Basically, the movement died. Now, you know, Stalin, whether he was killed by Jewish doctors or whatever, doesn't matter. Fascinating history nevertheless. But when he died, it still continued on for years. 30-something more years.
Oh, let's take you an even better example. The SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. When Dr. King died, what happened? It took a while for them to get their bearings. After 68, okay?
Well, at least they got their bearings, but the idea with...
But the one-man system is set up.
It rarely comes back.
Exactly.
It's not when you know, they're not thinking about their future.
All right.
The elders that they have, if they have any at all, are for appearance.
Exactly.
And maybe to do small tasks that they don't want to do. But
exactly.
Nothing really significant. They don't have they don't have a successor, or, you know, say, look, this is what happens if something is to happen to me.
Exactly. There really is no plan. I'll give you a good example. Over here in North Carolina, the Mason couple, you remember go up 3 years ago?
Yeah, I do.
That
Gary and Judy Capps.
Yeah, Gary and Judy Capps. One killed the other one and then killed themselves.
Oh my God.
What happened to that ministry?
It's gone.
That ministry today is gone. We know people that were in bond servant ministries. We were actually going to go to bond servant ministries to minister to those people because they were left in such dire straits. And we ended up moving. We were coming here, so we couldn't do both at the same time. So we had to pick one, and that was to get us here. But we were going to go there and minister to those people because this is an exact replica of what's to come. Now, here's the thing. The system of plurality is set up in such a way where we can do a lot of things. We can minister to people in jails and prisons, the homeless, hospitals, and that one-man system is not set up that way. It's set up for that one man to be the pastor, to be the apostle, to be the prophet, to be the teacher, to be the deacon, to be the elder, to be the person that goes into prisons, to be the person that does hospital visits, to be the person to do all of that stuff. It's not set up for anybody else like
a hireling.
Exactly. That's what the one man is. The person is a hireling, and you are in effect working for the benefit and the profit of that one man and his family. Okay. If there's any line of succession, that's what it's going to come to through a family.
Yeah,
but more than likely, it doesn't happen that way.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
You both are leaders in this Essene Yahad movement. Isn't it just the same as the rest? Isn't there just one man at the top that makes decisions and everybody else either has to follow in line or get out? If there's a complaint, either you take it to the head, and if it's against the head, then probably you're going to get thrown out, like so many do. What's the difference?
I'll take this one.
Go ahead.
Sure.
So the difference is that, you do have, first, the titles are not necessarily meaning that you have more power than someone else. It is an indication of your duty, of your job, of your vocation, your responsibility or responsibilities. Second, you do have a council of elders, and that is where decisions are made. Those decisions, if you come to the meeting, you can participate in the decision-making process. That's very simple. And if you don't, then, you can't say too much because you know when the meetings are, and then, we've tried to schedule them at a schedule it, meaning, we have one meeting a week at a time that would be conducive to everybody getting there if they want to. So you go there, and you do have 3 overseers currently. So, yeah, if you still have a problem with Daniel, you can go to Brad, or got a problem with Jack, you can go to Daniel, or so on. And it will, and I think the overseers and the elders are pretty mature people who are not going to lose it and go nuts and go berserk and go Ayatollah-like when, something, they hear that somebody doesn't agree with every word they say.
Well, maybe you could go on to explain the Yahad model then, and maybe
The politics.
I often...
Well, let me throw this in before you explain now, Monica, it's something you forgot. Even if we have impaneled Shafteen judges, if it's got that bad, we have a type of, I guess you would call it a Supreme Court type of deal. I guess you call us the Supremes, and you have an overseer and several elders. And now Shaliach was just added to this to this panel of shelter. And so there are different ways. There's a chain of command or a chain of responsibility. That's the better word.
Oh, wait a minute. I have to break in here.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
You say chain of command and chain of responsibility.
Take the command.
What about the authoritarianism of the higher titles?
It shouldn't be there at all.
No authoritarianism?
No authoritarianism. However, I do believe that you do need both to function. The word says that the body is made up of many members, and there's some that are more comely than the others. And so you need authoritarians, you need A personalities, you need B personalities, and to make this work, because you can't have one without the other. They're not mutually exclusive either.
All right, so you're saying if we're looking at Romans 12, servants, we've got teachers.
Yes.
Help me out here. We've got prophets.
Yes, you got pastors.
We've got, that's in Ephesians 4. And we've got what they call the motivational gifts. So some of these, you're saying, are humbler, and some of these are more exalted, yet they're all on the same level as far as authority, even though they have different responsibilities.
Exactly.
A pretty direct example. So we're going to have a elder at our event in Florida. She's going to be over the kitchen.
An elder, she?
Yeah.
Yes. That too.
Oh, yes. We have
she.
That is one part of
it. Can't be a she.
Absolutely.
There's one part of the polity that we don't have a problem with ordaining women. But I'll finish my example and then I'll
thank you.
But the idea where she is, where she's going to be working in the kitchen, and there'll be some other things she'll be doing too. She's got authority there, and she shouldn't have to go and ask for everything to be approved of by one of you, by one of the overseers at all, or anyone else.
Exactly.
And she knows what she's doing there. She handled it once before at an event and did a splendid job.
Well, in the past, don't we recall that there was a particular authority over even the kitchen and everything else. What's wrong with that? I mean,
to me, it's called meddling.
Meddling.
It's called meddling. And here, my leadership style is this. I'm one of those guys, look, I'm too old and I'm too blind to be running around and chasing everybody around. So my deal is delegation. If you're called to do thus and so, have at it. If you're called to do security, have at it. I don't want to know about it. Now, if there's a problem, come to me and I can help you. But I'm not going to get in the middle telling you how to do your job.
Well, at first we assume that you know how to do what you say you know how to do.
Exactly.
I'm not going to talk to I'm not going to tell the web developer that he's doing his job wrong, as long as I see that what he is doing for me is working.
Amen.
Meaning he gets the stuff up that I want up in a prompt manner, or, decent manner, a decent amount of time, and everything works. I'm not going to say anything. I don't care about how he's coding it. I don't care about what tool he's using to do it.
And that's why the one-man system is destined to die.
Also, the one-man system is the ultimate definition of micromanagement.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You've got to have your hand,
everybody's
finger, because you don't have enough hands. You got to have every finger in a pie,
and as
including your opposable thumbs.
And the funny thing is, usually if you check the medical definition, those people are ADHD and OCD.
Oh, I understand.
We've had a leader stand up in the middle of a congregation because the onslaught was getting so bad to tell us, I'm sorry, you sat down in the seat of a shepherd. You know you're not called to be a shepherd. So therefore, I told that individual in this house, right over there, I said, so therefore, I am holding you responsible as if I'm talking to one of my bishops from the church. So I'm holding you responsible, so I want answers.
Well, as to the polity,
yes,
I'm probably going to be missing some because
that's what
polity mean.
Well, polity is government.
Okay.
So yes, first we do have a government, and you've got the idea is that in some ways, yes, it's kind of churchy because you could use titles like a bishop. You could say elder, deacon.
Aren't those biblical though?
Yes,
they are biblical.
I thought they were.
And even and now they may have different names in Hebrew, but
Greek,
or Greek, but so because we are where we are and who we are, we have to use names that people understand. So for overseer or mavakar, you say bishop. Or chief overseer, archbishop, go on, girl.
Yeah, but you do have these levels. That's basically the idea that if you can find deacons, you can find servants, and they're men and women, by the way, men and women. But you can find these, and while they are they have different jobs, their authority is equal, as we spoke about. That one should be able, the servant, the shoter, or the, I'm not sure what it would be in Greek, doula, or diakon.
That's a slave, doula,
or
doulos, or diakonos.
Diakonos is the deacon.
Is a deacon.
But they should be able to go to the overseer, or archbishop, if you will, and speak to them. And be considered as well as equals.
Exactly.
So you're saying that an archbishop is on the same level as, say, a slave?
Absolutely. Well, if he want to be greatest in Yeshua's word says
say if you want to be greatest,
if you want to be greatest, absolutely.
So absolutely, that's a pretty definitive statement.
Yeshua was very specific concerning that.
The fact about it is, if you look to the later Pauline letters, what you find there is the highest you can go is elder. However, we have titles for various responsibilities.
Exactly.
Correct.
Like we've got, this has been misinterpreted by the church. We've got a bishop or a presbyter. It just means overseer, mavakar in Hebrew. And you've got a deacon,
right,
diakonos or shoter in Hebrew. And also, if you look closely at the passages there in Timothy and Titus, it talks about gunekos, women. Women as deacons and elders. that are perfectly able to do preaching and teaching and so forth. And then you have people that are called servants and slaves, doulos, and that's slave, and diakonos as a servant. Well, the fact is, the highest you can get as far as authority is elder, zaken, or which in Hebrew means beard. And, you know, there's an implication there, not necessarily a male. Of course, that was an anthropocentric environment, but I've known women with beards. It has to do with maturity. Yes. Has to do with maturity. And this is a new world in our day. This is a world of equality. And
that is something, too, that the Yahad, one of the things in the community rule, one of the first ones that said that the community rule should change with us.
Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
It is the ultimate in living documents. And
what's the community rule? What are you talking about?
Community rule is, I think there are maybe 11 or 12 of them.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes. And they talk about basically the rules for the community.
Exactly.
You know, there are lots of communities that form, and you're like, you got this vision, and it sounds okay, but you've not even thought about rules. And, you've got to think about everything. You've got to think now. They didn't have electricity back in the time of James but we have electricity.
Exactly.
We have toilets. We have, computers. If you have communal devices, then you need to dictate and stuff, how those things are going to be used.
And in any community that is in operation that does not have a community rule, that is, ladies and gentlemen, a cult.
All right.
Rotten.
Let's go back to the historical model here.
Okay.
Governor Elder Yochanan spoke about 11 or 12 community rules. Community rule is from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it is much like the kind of rule that the New Testament assembly, in fact, it's exactly the same, would follow for living in communities. We read in Acts that they lived in community.
And all things in common.
They were also, you look at Acts 6, and there were some disputes between the Hellenists and the Hebrews that had to be worked out. Now, these community rules really are one community rule that evolved over the course of 100 to 150 years.
Right.
And the idea of the evolution of the community rule is that every time there was a new overseer, that community rule would be reevaluated by the elders in the Yahad or the community or in the circle, and it would be changed depending on the time that they lived in and the custom of the people. So the reason we have 11 or 12 or even 13 of these is not that they're all separate from the same time, but they come from different times. They've been amended or truncated to add or subtract rules of communal
living.
Well, we would say in the Old Testament word, intercourse.
Yes.
We changed with the times, with the culture, with the technology. And the first thing is, Elder Yochanan said, that is in these community rules is that they have to change with time and circumstance and people.
That's right.
Till we come to New Testament times, and we, in the first century, undoubtedly what we call the teaching of the 12 or the Didache, a very ancient document that is attributed to one of the brothers of Yahshua as a community rule that we also follow that is quite a bit truncated from the community rules of the Dead Sea Scrolls and gives us a standard of living in community that is actually so modern that we can still use this rule to live in community as a community of equals without even changing it.
Right.
But we can change it depending on the difference between our culture and people and technology.
Well, that's right.
2,000 years later.
A lot of things have changed.
that we also follow that is quite a bit truncated from the community rules of the Dead Sea Scrolls and gives us a standard of living in community that is actually so modern that we can still use this rule to live in community as a community of equals without even changing it.
Right.
But we can change it depending on the difference between our culture and people and technology of 2,000 years later.
A lot of things have changed.
Are you making your plans for Sukkot this year? I hope so. This ingathering, this pilgrim feast, is undoubtedly the most exciting event on the sacred calendar of the year. Consider tabernacling. Consider tabernacling with us at the Vero Essene Yahad.
Brother Snyder.
Learn your Hebrew roots, but learn them the Essene way. It's a better, more authentic, more Yeshua way. We're going to be gathering October 2nd through 9th, 2018 at Booker T. Washington State Park in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And our theme this year is Up from Slavery. That might sound familiar to you. I know when I was going to school, that was a book that we had to read by Booker T. Washington. And an exciting one about Reconstruction after the Civil War. And so we're going to be talking a lot about freedom. And as for the dates, no, we're on the Enoch calendar, the Essene calendar, the same calendar Yeshua was on. And this year you can make your plans because it's October 2nd through 9th. And if you want more information to make your plans, here's where you can go. www.theyahad.net/Sukkot. Sukkot. And there you'll find a beautiful page with all the details. I would love to see you there. Come on, let's have some fun. Let's talk. Let's do ingathering together. Let's worship together. Or get a hold of me and we'll talk about it. VeroYahad@gmail.com.
Oh, gosh. Brother Snyder.
I would think if we were going to actually go into a real community, as in we were going to live in the same city or same city block or buy land, then we'd have to consider seriously amending heavily.
Yes.
Or adding to that rule, because the base is fine, but you would want to dictate and discuss issues of communal use, meals and,
Right.
how long they would last, and if you had a communal building, would you have meetings every day? How long would they last? What would be the idea, the order of those meetings? All kinds of things.
Well, how about the fact that as a group, which we call a Yahad, after the people of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and certainly the people of Acts, when you read in Acts that they were in one accord, that is what the word would be in Hebrew, is Yahad. We are not at a place where we could possibly be large enough to live in community, but we live remotely. And we stay in communication through internet and other such wireless broadband devices. And so what I'm saying is that, yes, like Brother Yochanan said, if we were living in some commune someplace, then we would have to very much expand the rules from 2,000 years ago. But however, we can't do that.
Not yet.
In this day. There have been many attempts to do that. There have been very few successful attempts. One of the very few would be the Hutterites of Canada and North Dakota and their settlements. But, they come from a completely different background and tradition than we do.
Right.
And though there are many people out there trying to build communities, it's not working today because they continue to hold to that standard model of one man, not woman, rule. One man,
one man, one Lord, one God.
Well, I mean, the first thing that should be happening with communities is that you put together a council, even if it's just the first 15 people who bought into your community, and then you start
from there.
You start from there, but you got to put together documents, the community rules, like a constitution,
right? And everybody has to agree to that.
Yes, exactly. They cannot be unaware of this. They have to abide by it. When you it'd be, I guess, something that people would have to sign.
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking about things that I know about communities. People getting
mad. Yep. Money stole from them.
Money. It's there should be something.
Even in worse case scenarios where people are being abused physically and spiritually, where they seize property,
right?
Marriages are broken up. Children seized.
That is an example, actually, of something that would be very difficult to work in this culture. You give all your property, all your money over to somebody, even if it's a council.
Right.
It'd be very difficult.
I think it would be easier to do it with a council than it will be to give it to one man.
Also, though, you have to know those people. You have to trust that council.
You better.
But that's actually why, though, the Essenes, when they did this, you had a 3-year trial. And the first year, none of your stuff was merged in, I guess. And the second year was temporarily merged in. And if you made it to the third year, you went to the whole deal.
Why do you think that they would want to do that? That they want to give up all their property and come into a community situation where, their needs were met, but if they were people of vast wealth,
they lost it.
Let's look at it. Let's look at history, and let's look at the security situation, because that's really what it was about. If you know anything about the Jewish community and Jewish life, most of the people of most of our forefathers that started, the 12 that started with Yeshua, most of them were Jewish. Okay, and you had a few other people there, but for the most part, they were all Jewish. At that time, they came out with what the Jews believed to be a different gospel. That set them aside. So what happened? Increasingly, as the word traveled and as people began to join themselves to the body, the security situation becomes such. If you were going to believe in the Messiah, if you were going to walk in the way for security reasons, you had to live in community. Because I did a teaching a couple of weeks ago about the role of blind people in the Jewish community and their roles as beggars and how that affected them and what that meant when they were told you were not really part of the congregation. Your role is your needs are being provided for by begging on the side of the road. That's how you get provided for. That's your job. That's your station. That's what you're to do. So anybody getting kicked out of the synagogue, that means you are out of Jewish life. That means you don't go to school. That means you don't go to yeshiva. That means you don't buy and sell. That means you're not allowed to have any public relationships with people in that community once you have been removed from Jewish life. And so this is what happened to our forefathers. This is some of the things that they sacrificed. And so when you are out of the Jewish community, you're out of Jewish life, now you're open to be attacked physically and killed in many cases because you are seen as being a momser.
Momser?
A momser.
What's that?
A bastard.
Okay.
And so they took liberties, it's like with the beggar. Yes, the beggar was provided for, but the beggar was an object of ridicule and abuse. And so this is the type of stuff that our forefathers had to deal with. And so for safety, it was better for them to come into community rather than to remain
you couldn't
exposed.
Remain separate, because this goes back even to when the priests were put out of the temple. They had to go out into the desert, and teacher of righteousness showed up and stuff like that, and they formed up a community. But there was no way, once they were put out of the temple, they could just be normal people.
Correct.
And
they would have been open to all kinds of attack.
Whatever you want to call them, Essenes, Zadokites, Cumanites, whatever you want to call them. And maybe they're none of those, maybe they're all of them. But so be it. But they got together because of security. It's if
and that time might come again.
It could.
And that time may come again where
I think, but then the idea, the rules reflect those things.
Exactly.
But our rule will reflect quite different situations.
Correct.
Our community rule, if we were to actually get into an area, say that it was Tennessee, and say that we got a town, or we were able to get some land somewhere and actually live on it, then we have a whole lot of things to consider, because you've got broadband access. Does everybody have to get their own? Do you have a single line and everybody pays for it? Like you get some just massive, internet throughput.
And not a spotty one.
And everybody puts in $50 a month. So you can get one that's like $2,000 a month.
Exactly.
Which would be some crazy bandwidth. But, okay, other things. TV, phone, water, sewer. These things would all have to be noted and taken note of. So when people move in, all these things will be
dealt with upfront.
Maybe, I don't know if you put them in a community rule, but obviously these are modern things you have to worry about. Because nobody is going to, just live in a Quonset hut.
Right.
Or, they're not doing that.
Well, look again at the particular economic and social and demographic situation of biblical times. I'm thinking primarily of the first century BC and first century AD.
Heavily taxed.
Heavily taxed, third world country.
Exactly.
I mean, the
serious oppression.
The talk about in Revelation about taking a mark that you could neither buy or sell, that happened in the first century and the first century BC as well. That was a common thing. If you didn't take the mark, you couldn't buy or sell. And a person that was a fisherman, for instance, never ate his own fish. He had to sell the fish to make enough money to pay the tax and have a little left over for himself. Today, we're in a much different age. We are in a golden age, I might say. The people that are aggressively disregarding the tremendous bounty that we have, especially in our country, and cursing it
every day,
considering that it deserves punishment because it's affluent, or because it has too many abortions, or too much sin, or whatever. That to us is considered to be a situation that is so unlike the first centuries that as the Yahad or community rule tells us, we've got to change that to the extent that it fits properly in the culture. There's so many in the Hebrew Roots movement right now that are trying to start communes, and certainly the one big leader type of group, it grows a little bit and then it explodes, and then it grows a little bit and explodes. It can never work under the system of inequality, as primarily is shown in the Old Testament, in the Kings and so forth. That can't work in today's society.
It never was supposed to work. And Yahweh's word says it never was supposed to work. When they went to Samuel, give us a king like all of the other nations have. Well, they were never to have a king. They were always supposed to have this council, this plurality of leadership.
All right. What we're finding is, in what we're doing, is a remote community of people that live, as far away as where?
Finland right now.
Finland,
Australia coming,
Patagonia, Cape Town, and Johannesburg, South Africa.
Australia coming soon.
Australia, British Columbia. Right now we're in Tennessee. So we have to modify the communal or community rule in order to accommodate this new model that includes broadband networking with people that are thousands and thousands of miles away and in some other time zone. Yeah. We can't neglect this tremendous opportunity by saying that we are confined to biblical circumstances. Because if people believe that Elohim quit speaking when the Catholic canon was closed,
or when the last apostle died.
Or when the last apostle died, they are so short-sighted and narrow-minded that they can't see the tremendous opportunities for community over vast remote regions, as we are trying to accomplish today with the Yahad. And again, Yahad means togetherness, or it means in one accord. And we're trying to find that. Now, it's hard to find people that understand this philosophy of ministry because of primarily the influence of the church system, which is, like Brother Daniel said a little bit ago, pastor has got to be a teacher, has got to be an evangelist, has got to go visit the hospital. That's not a biblical model.
No,
it's a one-man model there. This will never work for them. This will never work for Hebrew Roots cult leaders who have to have all power. This has got to be an egalitarian system that recognizes and appreciates modern technology as an evangelism tool.
Exactly.
Now, I have heard in church services, and not too long ago, the evils of social media. And I've got to admit, there are evils of social media. But look, this same thing branded evil by the church, they do not use it.
Exactly.
We can use it for good. It's neither good nor bad. It's simply a modern tool of bringing people remotely in one accord.
Exactly. You manage it. You don't let it manage you.
Exactly. And that again, that brings us right back to the idea of management and authority and authoritarianism. This is something we in the Yahad shun because we have been abused.
Absolutely.
By this kind of authoritarianism, and we understand and practice and have found peace in shared responsibility without the need of the common authority other than the full counsel of Elohim, and that coming at times when we go to the throne room,
yes,
and then come back down with the answer.
Amen.
There's
Can I throw something in there? Because
just a second.
Go ahead.
There are people who ask about responsibility. So you're taking responsibility for what happened in the past. This is it. That is taking responsibility.
Yes.
If you say you leave it, you leave that one man system. You leave the not egalitarian and non-egalitarian systems alone, and you go towards this thing. And yes, it's difficult. You got to fight. You got to struggle. You got to
you got to work.
You got to work it. You got to work your way. But it is worth it. You meet people that you would never have met.
Yes.
People in Ontario and people in Finland and
Fiji.
Fiji. We don't know. We don't know who we're going to meet and where they're going to live.
Philippines, Vietnam, Romania, Russia, Scandinavia. We have met people from everywhere.
Let me talk about why I think a lot of people end up in these type of systems and what's going on with them. Because as I said earlier, a lot of people, they go to these one-man systems, and they go to the one-man system to shirk responsibility, shirk accountability, shirk this and shirk that. So when things go wrong, they turn around and they blame the leader, leader who asked for it, who begged for it. I once watched in a congregation for 6 months as a leader beg people to trust them, beg them to look to them, to inquire of them. And as I gave that example in Samuel, and I believe that the abuse that we see happening in the general body because of the one-man system, I believe it's judgment. I believe it's being allowed by Yahweh. And here's why. Go back to that example. They said, give us a king like all of the other nations. And they were given a king. They got King Saul. As a result, both houses of Israel ended up going into captivity. The 12 tribes were split, 10 and 3. And as a result, Judah went into captivity, so did the 10 tribes. The same exact thing as it was in the days of Noah, and so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Check this out. We've done exactly the same thing. We have turned and said, give us a king to rule over us. And so that's what happened. We were given kings to rule over the general body. And as a result, they're now abusing the general body. So now you think about it. So we're in captivity. Another captivity. Why? Because we rejected the set apart model that Yeshua gave to his 12 Talmudim.
There's another reason. I think when people come into the Messianic truth, they see these things, they assume Judaism is this way as well.
Exactly.
But even in the rabbinical, and for a minute we'll say something, they don't have one man. They have many. And there might be a chief rabbi of a synagogue, whatever, but he has other people under him doing things. He has a gabbai. He's got other assistant rabbis and so on and so forth, depending on how big the place is. Even a president of the synagogue in certain places.
Exactly.
So it's not all him.
There is a system in place. And we need to understand that we need to reevaluate. See, a lot of people, when they have problems with leadership, they evaluate the leader. But what they need to be doing is they need to be evaluating the entire leadership structure. And if they can evaluate the entire leadership structure and match that thing up with the word, you will find that structure, that one man, one God, one Lord system is illegal.
Yes. For the Vero Yahad, we've had Bishop Daniel Regesh, Elder Yochanan, and myself, Jackson Snyder. Our time is up. We have been talking about polity here and authoritarianism, and we wish that you would take to heart what has been said during this time. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact us, Vero Yahad, at gmail.com, or go out to our site at veroyahad.org and hit the contact button. We thank you for listening, and I thank you fellows for being a part of this very important discussion. Amen.
Amen.